Perry Garland was 34 years old when his entire world collapsed on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday afternoon in October. He didn't discover his wife's betrayal through suspicious text messages or lipstick on a collar. No, he learned the truth because Bonnie forgot to end a phone call. He was sitting in his home office in downtown Seattle, reviewing architectural blueprints for a mixed-use development project when his phone buzzed. Bonnie's name lit up the screen. They just talked an hour earlier. She was out shopping with her sister Valerie, getting ready for some charity gala they were attending that weekend. Perry figured she was calling to ask his opinion on dress colors or whether he'd picked up her dry cleaning. "Hey, babe," he answered, already pulling up his calendar to double-check if he'd forgotten something important. Silence. "Bonnie, you there?" More silence, but not the empty kind. He could hear background noise, muffled voices, the distant sound of traffic, the electronic ding of what sounded like a store entrance. She'd pocket-dialed him. It happened sometimes. Perry was about to hang up when he heard her voice, distant but clear enough to make out words. "God, Val, I can't believe I'm actually going through with this." Bonnie's laugh was sharp, nothing like the soft, musical sound Perry had fallen in love with 8 years ago. "I mean, part of me almost feels bad." "Almost?" Perry froze, his finger hovering over the end call button. His stomach tightened with an inexplicable dread. "Don't you dare feel guilty," another voice said. "Valerie, definitely. That man has had you living like you're middle class when you could be so much more. You deserve better than his 30-something architect salary and that modest little life." Perry's throat constricted. He made good money, nearly $120,000 a year. They lived in a nice condo, took vacations twice a year, never worried about bills. But he'd always been careful about money, conservative even. There was a reason for that, one he'd never shared with Bonnie, one he'd planned to reveal on their 10th anniversary, just 2 years away. "It's not just about the money," Bonnie said, and Perry heard the sound of hangers sliding on a rack. "Though God knows I'm tired of him acting like spending $300 on a dress is some major investment decision. It's that he's so safe, so predictable, so boring." Something in Perry's chest cracked, a clean break, like ice splitting under pressure. His breath caught in his throat. "Perry is pathetically oblivious," Bonnie continued, her voice dripping with contempt. "I've been seeing Derek for 7 months now, and he hasn't suspected a thing. Not once. You know what he did last week? He surprised me with reservations at that Italian place where we had our first date. Brought me flowers. Read me a poem he'd written." She laughed again, and it sounded cruel. "A poem, Val? Like we're teenagers. It was so embarrassing I could barely look at him." 7 months. The words echoed in Perry's head like a death knell. 7 months while he'd been planning anniversary surprises and writing terrible poetry because he knew it made her smile. Or so he'd thought. Perry's hand trembled as he gripped the phone tighter. Every word was a knife sliding between his ribs, precise and devastating. "So Derek's definitely better than—" Valerie started, but Bonnie cut her off. "Derek's everything Perry isn't. Confident, successful. He doesn't second-guess every decision or ask my opinion about every little thing like he's incapable of thinking for himself. And the sex, God, Val, I'd forgotten what it's like to actually want someone." Perry felt his face flush, hot, then cold. The room suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in. His hands were shaking so badly he nearly dropped the phone, but he couldn't bring himself to end the call. Some masochistic part of him needed to hear it all. "When are you telling him?" Valerie asked, her tone excited, like they were discussing vacation plans. "After the new year. Derek and I have it all planned out. I'll file in January. Apparently that's better timing for the settlement. My lawyer said I should easily get half of everything, maybe more if we play up the right angles. Perry has been putting everything in both our names like an idiot, so it'll be straightforward." The casual way she said "like an idiot" made Perry's jaw clench. He'd put everything in both their names because that's what you did when you loved someone, when you trusted them completely. "And he has no idea you've been planning this?" Valerie asked. "None whatsoever. I've been the perfect wife, cooking his favorite meals, laughing at his boring work stories, pretending to care about his little architectural projects. He's completely convinced we're happy. Bonnie paused, and Perry heard the rustle of clothing. This weekend's gala will be perfect, actually. I'll play the devoted wife one more time, smile for all the photos, make everyone think we're the perfect couple. Then come January, boom, he won't know what hit him. Perry felt bile rise in his throat. That gala, he'd spent 2 weeks coordinating his schedule to attend, had his best suit dry cleaned, even bought tickets to the silent auction because Bonnie said it was important to her. All of it, every single moment, had been a performance. "You're cold," Valerie said, but she was laughing, clearly entertained. "I love it. And Derek's really worth all this?" Derek's a partner at Henderson and Associates. He drives a Porsche 911. His condo overlooks the waterfront. The penthouse unit, Val. In 6 months with him, I've been to more five-star restaurants than Perry has taken me to in 8 years. Bonnie's voice dropped lower, more intimate. Plus, Derek knows what he wants and takes it. Perry is always asking if I'm okay, if I'm happy, if I need anything. It's exhausting pretending to be into that kind of weakness. Weakness. She thought his care for her, his consideration, his love, all of it was weakness. Perry's vision blurred. He blinked hard, refusing to let tears fall. Not yet. Not while he was still listening to his wife plot his destruction like it was a game. "When does Derek's divorce finalize?" Valerie asked. "February. We're planning to move in together by March. His ex-wife is already with someone else, so it's uncontested. Easy peasy." Bonnie laughed, a sound that used to make Perry smile. "Meanwhile, I'll make sure Perry and I stay cordial through the divorce. It'll look better to the judge. Plus, if he thinks there's a chance at reconciliation, he might be more generous with the settlement. My lawyer specifically advised me to keep him hopeful. Easier to manipulate that way." The calculation in her voice was stunning. This wasn't a moment of weakness or confusion. This was planned, deliberate, strategic. She'd been playing him for months, maybe longer. "What about his family?" Valerie asked. "Won't they be suspicious if you're suddenly so friendly during a divorce?" "Please, Perry's parents live in Portland. We see them maybe 3 times a year. They think I'm wonderful. And his brother's stationed overseas with the Navy. There's nobody close enough to interfere." Bonnie's voice turned smug. "Besides, Perry is conflict averse. He'll probably just accept whatever I propose because he'll be too devastated to fight." Perry felt something shift inside him. The pain was still there, raw and bleeding, but underneath it, something harder was forming. Something cold and focused. "You know what the best part is?" Bonnie continued. "I'll walk away with at least $150,000 from the condo sale. Probably more. Plus, I'll get spousal support since I quit my job 2 years ago to support his career." His words, not mine. "I just wanted to stop working." She laughed. "And he'll probably give me the car too if I cry enough about needing transportation. God, he's so easy to manipulate." Perry glanced at the framed photo on his desk. Their wedding day, both of them laughing, her hand on his chest, his arm around her waist. He'd thought that day was the beginning of forever. Apparently for Bonnie, it had been the beginning of a long con. The conversation continued. He heard them discussing vacation homes in Maui, Derek's sailboat, how Perry would probably cry when she told him, and how pathetic that would be. Each word was another layer of betrayal, another revelation of just how little he'd actually known the woman he'd married. Then there was rustling, a muffled sound, and suddenly Bonnie's voice was crystal clear and very close to her phone. "Perry? Perry, are you there? Oh my God, how long have you been on this call?" Perry said nothing. His voice had abandoned him entirely. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything he now knew. "Perry!" Her tone shifted, panic creeping in like water through a cracked dam. "If you heard anything just now, you need to understand. Val and I were just joking around. You know how we are. We get dramatic when we're shopping. Perry ended the call. For exactly 30 seconds, he sat in complete silence, staring at his phone screen. The afternoon sunlight slanted through his office window, dust motes drifting lazily in the beam. Everything looked the same as it had 20 minutes ago, but nothing would ever be the same again. Then his phone rang. Bonnie. He declined the call without hesitation. It rang again immediately. Declined. A text came through. "Marcus, please. Call me back. It wasn't what it sounded like. I can explain. Another text. You're being ridiculous. Call me right now. The shift from panic to anger happened in less than 2 minutes. Perry watched it unfold, seeing the pattern clearly now. This was who she was. Manipulative, calculating, willing to gaslight him even when he'd heard everything with his own ears. Then another text. Fine. Be childish. I'll be home in an hour and we'll talk about this like adults. Like adults, as if she was the reasonable one. As if he was having some kind of tantrum instead of responding to the fact that his wife had been cheating on him for 7 months and planning to divorce him for money. Perry's hands were shaking. He set the phone down carefully on his desk and stared at it, watching as more texts came through, each one a different manipulation tactic. Guilt, anger, bargaining. She was running through every trick in the book. But here's what Bonnie didn't know. What nobody except Perry's financial advisor and his late grandfather's estate lawyer knew. Perry wasn't the struggling, modest architect she thought he was. Like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new stories here every day. And if Bonnie's behavior already has you heated, drop a comment. Let me see how many of us are feeling the same way. When Perry's grandfather passed away 6 years ago, he'd left Perry a trust fund. Not an insane amount, but enough to change everything. $2.3 million, to be exact, invested conservatively and growing steadily. But there was a condition. Perry couldn't access the principal until he turned 35, just 18 months away. He could take distributions from the earnings, but he'd chosen not to. He'd wanted to prove to himself and to anyone he might marry that he could build a life on his own merit. He'd wanted to know that whoever loved him, not his money, not his inheritance, not his potential, him. Bonnie had no idea those funds existed. When they'd gotten married, Perry had signed a simple document confirming the trust's existence for legal purposes, but he'd downplayed it, called it a small inheritance that was tied up in investments. Bonnie had barely glanced at the paperwork, uninterested in anything that wasn't immediately accessible. She'd never asked for details and Perry had never volunteered them. He'd planned to tell her everything on their 10th anniversary. He'd even started planning how he'd reveal it. Maybe a surprise trip to Bali, a renewal of their vows, a future where they could do anything they wanted because they'd already proven they didn't need the money to be happy together. What a fool he'd been. Perry opened his laptop with steady hands. The initial shock was wearing off, replaced by something clearer, sharper. He pulled up his email and found his financial advisor's contact information, then his grandfather's estate lawyer. Then he opened a new document and started typing, recording everything he'd just heard while it was fresh in his memory. Every word, every laugh, every calculated comment about manipulating him through the divorce. His phone kept buzzing, more texts from Bonnie, then calls from Valerie, then a voicemail from Bonnie, her voice tear-soaked and desperate. Perry, please, baby, you have to let me explain. I love you. I don't know what you think you heard, but I love you so much. Please just call me back. Please. The performance was almost convincing. If he hadn't heard her laughing about his pathetic poem just minutes ago, he might have even believed her. Perry's mind was racing now, clicking through possibilities with the same methodical precision he used when designing buildings. Foundation first, structure, support systems. Then the details that made everything work. He needed a lawyer, not just any lawyer, the best divorce attorney in Seattle. Someone who understood complex assets and trusts, someone who could move quickly and quietly. Perry had never considered himself a vindictive person, but listening to Bonnie plot to take everything from him while mocking his kindness had awakened something fierce and unforgiving in his chest. She wanted to manipulate him. Fine, let her try. He opened a new browser tab and started searching for divorce attorneys, cross-referencing reviews and specializations. His phone buzzed again, another text from Bonnie. I'm on my way home. We need to talk now. Perry glanced at the time. She'd be there in 30 minutes, maybe less if she was panicking. Good, let her panic. Let her wonder what he was thinking, what he was planning, whether he'd actually heard everything or just part of it. He found 3 attorneys with excellent reputations for high-asset divorces. One specialized in protecting clients from financial manipulation. Perfect. Perry fired off 3 identical emails, marking them urgent, requesting consultations as soon as possible, tomorrow if they could manage it. Then he did something that surprised himself. He called his brother Jason, who was indeed stationed overseas but happened to be on leave. They hadn't talked in 2 weeks, but Jason answered on the second ring. "Perry, how's it going, man?" "Jason, I need you to listen carefully. I'm about to tell you something, and I need you not to interrupt until I'm done." Perry's voice was steadier than he felt. There was a pause. "Okay, you're scaring me a little, but okay, I'm listening." Perry told him everything. The accidental call, the conversation he'd overheard, Bonnie's affair with Derek, the 7 months of lies, the planned divorce filing in January, the strategy to manipulate him into a generous settlement, Valerie's involvement, all of it in clear, precise detail. When he finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Jesus Christ," Jason finally said, his voice tight with fury. "Perry, I'm so sorry. That's unforgivable. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to protect myself," Perry said simply. "I'm going to document everything, hire the best lawyer I can find, and make sure she doesn't get a single penny she's not legally entitled to. And Jason, she doesn't know about Grandpa's trust." Another pause. Then Jason let out a low whistle. "She has no idea she's about to go to war with someone who has actual resources. None whatsoever. She thinks I'm some pathetic easy mark who'll just hand over everything to make her happy." Perry felt his jaw tighten. "She's wrong." "I'll fly back if you need me," Jason offered immediately. "I can get emergency leave. Be there in 2 days." "Not yet, but I might need you to testify if this goes to court. You're military, you're credible, and you can confirm I've never been financially controlling or abusive," which I'm guessing will be her narrative. "Absolutely. Whatever you need, whenever you need it. You call me, day or night." They talked for another 10 minutes, Jason offering increasingly creative suggestions for revenge that ranged from practical to illegal. Despite everything, Perry found himself almost smiling. Having someone in his corner, someone who was genuinely outraged on his behalf, made the crushing loneliness feel slightly less suffocating. When they hung up, Perry looked around his home office. This condo, he'd designed the renovations himself, spent weekends installing shelves and painting walls, turned it into a home he was proud of. Bonnie had complained about the work, said they should just hire people, but Perry had wanted to build something with his own hands. Now she wanted to take half of it and walk away like their marriage had been some kind of business transaction gone sour. Perry heard the elevator ding in the hallway outside their unit. His pulse quickened. Bonnie was home. Time to see what kind of performance she'd prepared. He minimized his browser windows, closed his document, and stood up from his desk. His legs felt shaky, but he forced himself to walk steadily toward the living room. He could hear her key in the lock, the door opening, her footsteps quick and urgent across the hardwood floor. "Perry!" Her voice was breathless, frightened. "Perry, where are you?" He walked into the living room and stopped, keeping the coffee table between them. Bonnie stood in the entryway, shopping bags dropped carelessly at her feet, her face flushed and her eyes wide. She looked beautiful. Noticed distantly. She always did. That was part of what had made this so easy for her. He'd never suspected someone who looked at him like she did could be lying so completely. "How much did you hear?" she asked, her voice small and careful. Perry just looked at her, saying nothing. He'd learned a long time ago that silence could be more powerful than any accusation. "Perry, please. Whatever you think you heard, it's not what you think. Val and I, we were just talking. We say crazy things when we're together. You know that." She took a step toward him, hands outstretched. "You know I love you. You know I'd never—" "7 months," Perry said quietly. "You've been sleeping with Derek for 7 months. You have a lawyer? You're planning to file for divorce in January. You think I'm pathetic and oblivious? You were going to play the devoted wife this weekend at the gala, smile for photos, then destroy me come New Year." His voice never rose above conversational volume, which somehow made it worse. "Did I miss anything?" Bonnie's face went white, then red, then white again. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. For the first time since he'd known her, she seemed genuinely at a loss for words. I heard everything, Bonnie. Everything. From the moment you started talking to Val about going through with it, to the part where you laughed about the poem I wrote you, to the detailed discussion of how you're going to manipulate me through the divorce. Every single word. Tears started streaming down her face, and Perry felt nothing. That was the strangest part. He'd expected rage or devastation, or at least some emotional reaction. Instead, he just felt empty, hollowed out, watching her cry the way he might watch rain through a window. I didn't mean any of it, she sobbed. I was just... Val gets me worked up. We say things, stupid things. Derek doesn't mean anything. It was a mistake. A stupid, stupid mistake. Please, Perry, you have to believe me. I love you. I've always loved you. Stop, Perry said quietly. Just stop. I know what you're doing. Your text messages already went through guilt, anger, and bargaining. Now we're at crying and begging. What's next? Are you going to tell me it's somehow my fault? That I drove you to this? Bonnie's sob caught in her throat. She stared at him like she'd never seen him before. Get out, Perry said. The words came easier than he expected. Pack a bag. Take whatever you need for a few days. And then leave. Perry, no, please. Bonnie. His voice was still quiet, still calm, but something in it made her stop mid-sentence. You don't get to do this. You don't get to spend 7 months planning my destruction and then cry your way out of it because you got caught. You want it out? Fine, you're out. But you don't get to control how this happens anymore. This is my home too, she said, and just like that, the tears shut off. There was something hard in her eyes now. Something calculating. You can't just throw me out. You're right, this is your home too. Legally. Which is why I'm asking you to leave voluntarily for a few days while we both figure out next steps. Unless you'd prefer I start playing that phone call for everyone we know, your family, our friends, your employer. Oh wait, you quit your job to support my career, didn't you? Perry felt his calm facade crack slightly. I have documentation of everything you said, Bonnie. Every plan you made. Every cruel word. So you can walk out that door with some dignity, or I can make this very, very public. Your choice. The look she gave him was pure venom. There she was, the real Bonnie, the one who'd been hidden under sweet smiles and loving gestures, the one who'd called him pathetically oblivious and weak. You're going to regret this, she said coldly. I already regret it, Perry replied. I regret the last 8 years. I regret ever believing you loved me. I regret writing you poetry and surprising you with flowers and thinking any of it mattered. But I'll tell you what I don't regret, finding out who you really are before I wasted any more of my life. Bonnie grabbed her shopping bags, turned on her heel, and stormed toward their bedroom. Perry heard drawers slamming, hangers clattering, her angry footsteps pacing back and forth. 15 minutes later, she emerged with a rolling suitcase in her laptop bag. She stopped at the door, turned back to look at him. For just a second, her mask slipped, and he saw something like genuine regret cross her face. But then it was gone, replaced by cold fury. You'll hear from my lawyer, she said. I'm counting on it, Perry replied. The door slammed behind her, the sound echoing through the suddenly too quiet condo. Perry stood in the living room for a long moment, listening to the silence. Then his legs finally gave out, and he sank onto the couch, his hands covering his face. He didn't cry, not yet. Instead, he pulled out his phone and opened a new note, starting a timeline of every suspicious moment from the last 7 months that now made sense. Every late night she'd claimed was drinks with work friends. Every weekend she'd spent with her sister. Every time she'd picked a fight over nothing and stormed out for hours. The patterns were all there. He'd just been too trusting to see them. Perry's phone buzzed. An email response from one of the divorce attorneys, marked urgent. They could see him tomorrow at 9 a.m. He confirmed the appointment, his fingers steady on the screen. Tomorrow he would start building his defense. Tonight he would grieve the death of his marriage and the loss of the woman he'd thought he knew. But underneath the grief, something else was stirring. Something that understood that Bonnie had made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated him completely. She thought he was weak, pathetically oblivious, easy to manipulate. She was about to learn exactly how wrong she was. The next morning, Perry woke up at 6 a.m. in his own bed, which somehow felt both familiar and foreign. Bonnie had slept here beside him for 8 years, and now the empty space felt enormous, a vast territory of cold sheets and unanswered questions. He'd barely slept, his mind running through scenarios, possibilities, worst-case outcomes. But he'd also been thinking strategically. Perry had spent hours the night before documenting everything. He transferred the recording of Bonnie's phone call to 3 different locations: his secure cloud storage, a USB drive that he locked in his desk, and an email to himself marked as important. He'd written a detailed timeline of the last 7 months, noting every time Bonnie had been out with Valerie or working late, even though she hadn't had a job in 2 years. The pattern was damning when laid out in black and white. He'd also done something that felt both necessary and mildly illegal. He'd accessed their joint cell phone account and downloaded Bonnie's call logs and text message records from the past year. He couldn't read the content of the texts, but he could see frequency, duration, and numbers. One number appeared constantly, starting exactly 7 months ago. Hundreds of texts, calls lasting hours, video calls at odd times of night. Derek. At 8:30 a.m., Perry stood outside the office of Patricia Morrison, one of Seattle's most respected divorce attorneys. The building was downtown, all glass and steel and understated wealth. Patricia's practice specialized in complex asset division and protecting clients from financial manipulation. Exactly what Perry needed. He was early, so he sat in the tastefully appointed waiting room, trying not to think about how Bonnie had texted him 17 times overnight. Each message a different flavor of manipulation. The first few had been apologetic, begging for another chance. Then they'd turned angry, accusing him of overreacting. The most recent had been cold and businesslike. "My lawyer will be in touch. Don't try to hide assets. I know what you make." That last one had actually made him smile grimly. She had no idea what he had. "Mr. Garland?" A professional-looking woman in her mid-50s appeared in the waiting room doorway. She had steel gray hair, sharp eyes, and the air of someone who'd seen every trick in the book and wasn't impressed by any of them. "I'm Patricia Morrison. Come on back." Her office was impressive, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk that looked like it cost more than most cars, and windows overlooking Elliott Bay. Patricia gestured to a leather chair across from her desk and sat down, pulling out a legal pad and pen. "Your email was illuminating," she said. "Walk me through everything, from the beginning." Perry did. He told her about the accidental phone call, played her the recording he'd saved to his phone, showed her the timeline he'd created, the call logs, the text message patterns. He explained about the trust fund, the amount, the conditions. He told her about Bonnie's lawyer, about the planned January filing, about the strategy to keep him hopeful so he'd be more generous. Patricia listened without interrupting, taking notes in precise handwriting. When Perry finished, she set down her pen and looked at him with something that might have been respect. "Mr. Garland, in 28 years of practicing family law, I have rarely seen someone come to me this prepared. You did everything right. The recording, the documentation, the financial records, it's all admissible. Your wife essentially handed you her entire strategy on a silver platter." "So what happens now?" Perry asked. "Now we go on offense." Patricia opened a file on her computer. Washington is a no-fault divorce state, which means the affair itself doesn't typically affect asset division. However, what does matter is that you have assets she doesn't know about, and you were smart enough not to commingle them with marital assets. Your grandfather's trust is classified as separate property because it was inherited by you individually, not during the marriage. But we've been married for 8 years. Doesn't some of it become community property? Not if it's in a properly structured trust that you haven't accessed. The principal and its growth remain separate property. Now, if you'd been taking distributions and depositing them in joint accounts, that would be different. But you didn't. You lived entirely on your salary, which means the trust is almost entirely protected. Perry felt something unclench in his chest. So she can't touch it? Not the trust itself, The condo is a different story. That's marital property, purchased during the marriage with marital funds. She's entitled to half the equity, which you mentioned is around $150,000. She's also potentially entitled to spousal support, since she hasn't worked in 2 years. She quit to support my career, Perry said bitterly, which apparently meant sleeping with someone else while I paid all the bills. Patricia's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. The spousal support is where this gets interesting. In Washington, support is determined by need, the standard of living during the marriage, and the ability of the spouse to become self-supporting. However, you have documentation that she's planning to move in with her wealthy boyfriend. You also have proof that she lied about her reasons for quitting work. She admitted on that recording that she just wanted to stop working. Can we use that? Absolutely. It demonstrates that she doesn't actually need support and that her claims of financial dependency are fraudulent. We can also argue for a shorter duration of support or a reduced amount based on her affair and her plans to cohabitate with Derek. Patricia leaned forward. But here's what I want to do. I want to file first. Perry blinked. I thought she was planning to file in January. She is, which means we need to beat her to it. If we file first, we control the narrative. We set the terms of the initial pleadings. And most importantly, we catch her off guard. Exactly like she caught you off guard with that phone call. When would we file? Today, if you're ready, I can have the paperwork prepared in 2 hours. We file this afternoon, and she's served tomorrow morning. Patricia pulled up a calendar. The timing is perfect, actually. It's early November. By the time we get through initial hearings and discovery, it'll be the holidays. That works in our favor. Judges tend to be more sympathetic during the holidays, and your soon-to-be ex-wife will be scrambling to adjust her strategy while trying to maintain appearances. Perry thought about Bonnie's text. Don't try to hide assets. I know what you make. The arrogance of it, the certainty that she had all the information she needed. Do it, he said. File today. Patricia nodded, her expression satisfied. Good. Now let's talk strategy. Your wife has made several crucial mistakes. First, she underestimated you. Second, she documented her plans in a way you can prove. Third, she doesn't know about your trust fund. These are significant advantages. What about Derek? Perry asked. Is there any way to, I don't know, make his life difficult too? Is Derek married? Separated, getting divorced in February, according to Bonnie. Patricia made a note. We'll want to find out more about his divorce. If his wife doesn't know about the affair, that information might be useful. Not as leverage against Bonnie directly, but it creates pressure. Also, you mentioned Derek is a partner at Henderson and Associates. That's what Bonnie said. That's a prestigious firm with a strong reputation. They might be very interested to know one of their partners is having an affair with a married woman, especially if that affair is documented and affecting divorce proceedings. Many firms have morality clauses in their partnership agreements. Perry felt a spark of satisfaction. You're saying we could make this impact his career? I'm saying that information has a way of traveling, Mr. Garland, especially information as well documented as what you have. Patricia looked at him directly. How far are you willing to go with this? Perry thought about Bonnie's voice on that recording. He's pathetically oblivious. It's exhausting pretending to be into that kind of weakness. If he thinks there's a chance at reconciliation, he might be more generous with the settlement. As far as it takes, he said quietly. I want her to understand that there are consequences for treating people like this. I want her to know that kindness isn't weakness, and underestimating someone is a mistake. Patricia smiled, a sharp, pleased expression. Then let's build an airtight case. By the time we're done, she'll be lucky to walk away with what she's legally entitled to and nothing more. No manipulation, no generous settlement, no playing on your sympathy. Just cold, hard facts and the consequences of her choices. They spent the next hour going through details. Perry signed a retainer agreement, $25,000 up front, which he paid from his personal checking account. Patricia had him sign a dozen forms authorizing her to request financial records, phone records, and other documentation. She had him write out a detailed statement about his marriage, Bonnie's affair, and the events leading up to the accidental phone call. At noon, Patricia's paralegal brought in the first draft of the divorce petition. Perry read through it carefully. It was clinical, precise, devastating. It requested immediate separation of assets, limited spousal support based on cohabitation with a romantic partner, and included a motion to preserve all financial records and communications. We're also going to request a temporary restraining order, preventing either party from disposing of marital assets or taking on significant debt, Patricia explained. This prevents her from running up credit cards or selling property before the divorce is final. Perry signed the documents, his hand steady. By 2 p.m., they were filed with King County Superior Court. By tomorrow morning, Bonnie would be served with papers at whatever location she'd given as her current address. Probably Valerie's house, Perry guessed, since she'd mentioned her sister repeatedly in that phone call. What happens next? Perry asked as he prepared to leave. She'll have 20 days to respond. Her lawyer will probably try to schedule an emergency hearing to dispute the temporary orders or ask for spousal support pendente lite. That's support during the divorce proceedings. We'll oppose that based on the evidence we have. Meanwhile, we'll use discovery to gather more information about Derek, about any financial accounts she might have that you don't know about everything. Patricia walked him to the door. Mr. Garland, I want you to prepare yourself for this to get ugly. When your wife realizes you're not the easy mark she thought you were, when she understands that you have resources and documentation she didn't know about, she's going to escalate. She might make accusations. She might try to turn your friends and family against you. She might cry and beg and threaten. You need to be ready for all of that. I will be, Perry said. He paused at the door. Thank you, Patricia, for taking this seriously, for not treating me like I'm overreacting. You're not overreacting. You're responding appropriately to a significant betrayal and protecting yourself from someone who was actively planning to exploit you. That's not weakness, Mr. Garland. That's wisdom. Perry left the office feeling something he hadn't felt since that devastating phone call. Powerful, in control, like he was finally playing offense instead of defense. He had lunch at a small cafe near the waterfront, watching sailboats drift across the gray water. His phone buzzed, constantly. More texts from Bonnie, a few from Valerie, even one from a number he didn't recognize that he suspected might be Derek. He ignored them all. Instead, he called his parents. Susan and Martin Garland lived in Portland, about 3 hours south. They'd met Bonnie a dozen times over the years. Family dinners, holidays, the occasional visit. They thought she was wonderful, thoughtful, kind. They'd been so happy when Perry married her. This conversation was going to break their hearts, but they deserved to know the truth. His mother answered on the second ring. Perry, we were just talking about you. Your father saw an article about that waterfront development project you're working on. It looked beautiful, sweetheart. Thanks, Mom. Is Dad there? I need to talk to both of you about something. The shift in her tone was immediate. What's wrong? Are you okay? I'm okay, but I need to tell you something, and it's not good news. Can you get Dad? A moment later, both his parents were on the line. Perry told them everything, just as he'd told Jason and Patricia. The phone call, the affair, the planned divorce, the manipulation. His voice stayed steady throughout, clinical almost, like he was describing something that had happened to someone else. When he finished, there was a long, heavy silence. Perry, his father finally said, his voice thick with emotion. Son, I'm so sorry. I can't believe. We never saw any signs. She always seemed so devoted to you. That was the point, Dad. She was performing. For 8 years. What do you need from us? His mother asked, practical even in crisis. Do you need us to come up there? Do you need help with anything? Not right now, but I filed for divorce today. She's going to be served tomorrow. When she is, she's probably going to call you or try to manipulate the situation or claim I'm being unreasonable. I need you to know the truth before she gets to you with her version. We're on your side, his mother said firmly. Whatever you need, whenever you need it. That girl, she stopped, her voice breaking. We loved her. We thought she loved you. So did I, Perry said quietly. But she didn't. She loved what I could give her. And when she found someone who could give her more, she decided to trade up. They talked for another 20 minutes, his parents alternating between fury at Bonnie and concern for Perry. Before they hung up, his father said something that struck Perry deeply. You know, son, when you really love someone, Their happiness is more important than your own comfort. You spent 8 years making her happy, even when it meant being careful with money or skipping things you wanted. She spent 7 months planning to destroy you for her own benefit. That tells you everything you need to know about the difference between real love and selfish love. After the call, Perry sat in his car for a long time, watching the city move around him. People walked by with coffee cups and shopping bags, completely unaware that his entire world had imploded 48 hours ago. He drove home. It still felt like home, even without Bonnie there, and walked into the quiet condo. Everything looked the same. Their wedding photo still sat on the mantel, both of them smiling like they had some secret the rest of the world didn't know. Perry walked over, picked up the frame, and turned it face down. He couldn't throw it away yet. That felt too final, too violent. But he didn't need to look at it anymore either. Perry spent the evening going through their shared possessions with a critical eye. What had he bought? What had she bought? What did he actually care about keeping? He made a list on his laptop, categorizing everything. If this divorce was going to be a battle, he wanted to know the territory. At 9 p.m., his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Perry Garland? A male voice, smooth and confident. Who is this? Derek Morrison. I think we need to talk. Perry felt his jaw tighten. I have nothing to say to you. Look, man, I didn't know Bonnie was married when we started seeing each other. She told me you were separated, that the divorce was already in progress. I'm not trying to break up anyone's marriage. The lie was so smooth, so practiced, that Perry almost admired it. You've been sleeping with her for 7 months. You have a Porsche 911 and a penthouse condo. You're planning for her to move in with you in March. Do I really need to keep going? Or can we skip the part where you pretend to have integrity? There was a pause. When Derek spoke again, his voice had hardened. Bonnie warned me you might react badly. She said you could be controlling. Did she mention the recording I have of her detailing your entire relationship and her plan to manipulate me through the divorce? No. Interesting oversight on her part. Another pause, longer this time. What do you want, Perry? I want you to understand something very clearly. I'm not going to come after you physically. I'm not going to threaten you or do anything illegal, but I am going to make sure everyone knows exactly who you are and what you've done. Your firm, your colleagues, your family, your your ex-wife. Everyone is going to know that Derek Morrison from Henderson and Associates destroys marriages for fun. You can't do that. That's defamation. It's only defamation if it's untrue. I have documentation, recordings, phone records, everything I need to prove every single word. So here's my advice. Stay away from me, stay away from my divorce, and maybe get yourself a good lawyer, because Bonnie's not the only one who's going to need one. Perry hung up before Derek could respond. His hands were shaking again, but this time with adrenaline, not pain. That felt good. That felt like taking control back. An hour later, Bonnie texted, Derek said you threatened him. This is exactly the kind of behavior my lawyer needs to know about. Perry didn't respond. Let her think whatever she wanted. Tomorrow she'd be served with divorce papers, and she'd realize that he wasn't the pathetic, oblivious man she thought she married. He was something much more dangerous, someone who'd been underestimated. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel if you have not, because the ending of this story will blow your mind. And drop a comment below telling me what you think Perry should do next. The next morning, Perry woke to 17 missed calls and 34 text messages. He checked the time. 7:47 a.m. The process server must have reached Bonnie. The texts were a journey through the stages of rage. The first few were panicked. What did you do? You filed for divorce? Without even talking to me? Then angry. You are such a coward. You can't even face me. You have to do this through lawyers. Pathetic. Then threatening. My lawyer is going to destroy you. You have no idea what you've just started. You're going to regret this. Then bargaining. Perry, please, can we just talk? Face to face? I'll tell you everything. The truth. No more lies. Please just call off the lawyers. And finally calculated. Fine, if this is how you want to play it. But remember, I know things about you too. Things that won't look good in court. Your long hours, your obsession with work, the times you ignored me for your precious projects. A judge will hear all of it. Perry smiled grimly at that last one. Let her try. He had literal recordings of her planning to exploit him. What did she have? That he worked hard? That he was dedicated to his career? Good luck making that look bad. He got ready for work slowly, methodically. The routine helped. Shower, coffee, the same breakfast he made every morning. He was meeting with a client at 10 to discuss the final designs for a commercial renovation project. And he needed to be sharp. His phone rang. Patricia Morrison. Good morning, Mr. Garland. Just confirming that your wife was served at 7:30 this morning at her sister's residence. According to the process server, she became quite agitated upon reading the documents. I noticed, Perry said dryly, glancing at the 34 text messages. I expect we'll hear from her attorney within 24 hours. Until then, do not respond to her messages. Do not engage. Any communication should come through me. If she shows up at your home or workplace, document it, but don't interact beyond asking her to leave. Understood. One more thing. I had my investigator do some preliminary research on Derek Morrison. Interesting findings. His divorce isn't quite as amicable as he's been claiming. His wife filed on grounds of adultery, and she's asking for a significant settlement based on his infidelity. There's mention of multiple affairs in the filing. Your wife isn't the first married woman he's been with. Perry felt a cold satisfaction settle in his chest. So he's a serial homewrecker? It appears so, which means two things. One, Bonnie has chosen a partner with a proven pattern of dishonesty and infidelity. Two, Derek's firm is almost certainly monitoring his divorce proceedings, and they won't be happy about a pattern of affairs with clients or professional contacts. I have someone looking into whether Bonnie had any connection to Henderson and Associates before the affair started. You think she might have met him through work? It's a theory. If she met him while he was representing someone she knew, or at a professional event he attended, it could complicate things ethically for him. Law firms take that sort of thing very seriously. After the call, Perry headed to his office. The firm where he worked was small but prestigious, specializing in sustainable architecture and urban planning. His colleagues knew something was wrong. He'd been distracted for days, but he hadn't told anyone the details yet. That changed when his boss, Linda Park, called him into her office mid-morning. Perry, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Linda was 60, brilliant, and had built the firm from nothing 30 years ago. Are you okay? You've been off lately, and this morning you look like you haven't slept in a week. Perry sat down heavily. Bonnie and I are getting divorced. She's been having an affair for 7 months, and I only found out 3 days ago. Linda's expression shifted from concern to fury. That woman. I never liked her, Perry. I know I never said anything, but she always struck me as someone more interested in status than substance. You weren't wrong. Perry found himself telling her everything. Not the full story, but enough. The accidental phone call, the affair, the planned manipulation, the divorce filing. When he finished, Linda shook her head. I'm sorry you're going through this, but I have to say, I'm impressed by how you're handling it. You're being smart, strategic, not letting emotion override good judgment. I learned from the best, Perry said, managing a small smile. You always taught us to look at problems systematically, break them down into manageable pieces. Well, apply that philosophy to your personal life. And Perry, take whatever time you need. If you need to leave early, work from home, take a few days off, just tell me. Your work has been exceptional for 6 years. You've earned some flexibility. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and design reviews. It was almost a relief, focusing on concrete problems with clear solutions. Beam load calculations didn't cheat on you. Architectural codes didn't lie about their intentions. At 5 p.m., just as Perry was packing up to leave, his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Is this Perry Garland? A woman's voice, uncertain and strained. Yes, who is this? My name is Jennifer Morrison. I'm Derek's wife. Soon-to-be ex-wife, I guess. Perry felt his pulse quicken. How did you get my number? Your wife called me 3 hours ago. She told me I needed to stop causing problems, that my divorce was affecting her relationship with Derek, and that I should just accept the settlement his lawyers are offering and move on. Jennifer's voice cracked. She called me bitter and pathetic. She said Derek was happier with her than he ever was with me, and that I needed to let go. I'm sorry she did that, Perry said quietly. That was cruel and inappropriate. Is it true that you recorded her talking about the affair? Perry hesitated. How do you know about that? Derek told me. He's been calling me, trying to get me to agree to an expedited divorce because apparently your wife wants to move in with him sooner than planned. He mentioned that you're causing problems, that you have some kind of recording that's making everything complicated. Jennifer laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. I was married to him for 11 years. 11 years, and I thought we were happy. Then I found out about the affairs, plural, multiple women, all married, all convinced he was their soulmate. He has a type, apparently. Married women with something to lose. I'm sorry, Perry said again, and meant it. You didn't deserve that. Neither did you. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. I called because I wanted to warn you. Derek is good at manipulation. He's good at making people believe he's the victim, that circumstances just happened to him rather than being choices he made. And your wife, Bonnie, right? She's going to believe him. She's going to think she's special, that their love is different from all his other affairs. But it's not. It's the same pattern he follows every time. What pattern? He finds someone who's unhappy or vulnerable. He love bombs them. Fancy dates, expensive gifts, constant attention. He makes them feel like they're the center of the universe. Then he gets bored and moves on to someone new. The only reason he's still with Bonnie is that she's useful right now. But the minute she's divorced and available full-time, he'll lose interest. Perry thought about Bonnie's voice on that recording, so confident that Derek was everything he wasn't. Have you told her this? She won't listen. When I tried, she accused me of being jealous. Said I was a scorned ex-wife trying to sabotage her happiness. Jennifer sighed. But I wanted you to know, because you're going to face this together, whether you like it or not. We're both dealing with the aftermath of their choices. Thank you for calling, Perry said. And Jennifer, I hope you get everything you deserve in your divorce. From what you've told me, Derek owes you a lot more than he's offering. My lawyer thinks so too. We're preparing to go to trial if necessary. I'm done letting him control the narrative. She paused. Good luck, Perry. Something tells me you're going to need it. After the call, Perry sat in his car in the parking garage, processing. Bonnie had called Derek's wife to gloat, to rub her victory in Jennifer's face. The cruelty of it was stunning. And Derek was apparently doing everything possible to expedite his divorce so he could move on to his next conquest. They deserved each other. Perry drove home, stopping to pick up Thai food from his favorite restaurant. As he pulled into his building's parking garage, he saw Valerie's car parked near the entrance. Great, an ambush. Sure enough, when he got to his floor, Valerie was standing outside his condo door, arms crossed, expression furious. We need to talk, she said. No, we don't. Perry unlocked his door. You need to leave. You're ruining my sister's life. She made a mistake, Perry. One mistake, and you're destroying her over it. Perry turned to look at her. One mistake? She was sleeping with someone else for 7 months. She planned an entire divorce strategy designed to manipulate me into giving her more than she deserved. She called me pathetic and weak. You stood right there and laughed while she said it. So no, Valerie, this wasn't one mistake. This was a systematic campaign of deception and exploitation. Valerie's face flushed. You weren't supposed to hear that conversation. That was private. Tough. I did. And now I know exactly who your sister is and who you are. Perry stepped into his condo. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling building security. And if you ever come back here again, I'm calling the police. Bonnie loves you, Valerie tried, her voice desperate now. She's just confused. She needs help, not divorce papers. Bonnie loves what I can provide for her. That's not the same thing as loving me. Perry started to close the door. Goodbye, Valerie. Give my regards to Derek. He closed the door on her protests, locked the deadbolt, and leaned against it, breathing hard. His food was getting cold, but he couldn't bring himself to move yet. His phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Bonnie's attorney just contacted me. They want to meet tomorrow to discuss settlement options. I told them we're not interested in settling, until we complete discovery. Expect escalation. Escalation. That's exactly what this was becoming, and Perry was ready for it. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and let me know in the comments what you would have done in Perry's situation. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Bonnie's lawyer, an aggressive attorney named Richard Holt, filed motion after motion, requests for emergency spousal support, demands to access Perry's financial records, claims that Perry was hiding assets. Each filing was more desperate than the last, and each one was systematically denied by the judge once Patricia presented the evidence of Bonnie's affair and her recorded plans to manipulate the system. But the real battle wasn't happening in court. It was happening in the court of public opinion. Bonnie had launched a social media campaign that would have been impressive if it wasn't so transparently manipulative. Carefully worded posts about unexpected heartbreak and discovering who someone really is when things get difficult. Photos of her looking sad and reflective, always beautifully lit, always perfectly composed. Comments from friends offering support, asking what happened, expressing shock that Perry would throw away 8 years over a misunderstanding. Perry stayed silent. Patricia had advised him to say nothing publicly, and he followed that advice religiously. But his silence seemed to enrage Bonnie more than any response would have. 3 days after being served, she showed up at his office. Perry was in a meeting with a client when his assistant, Tom, knocked on the door. "Perry, I'm sorry to interrupt, but your wife, Bonnie is in the lobby. She's insisting she needs to see you. Security asked if they should escort her out." Perry excused himself and walked to the lobby. Bonnie stood near the reception desk and she looked terrible, or rather, she looked like she'd carefully cultivated the appearance of looking terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, possibly makeup, her hair slightly mussed, wearing yoga pants and a hoodie instead of her usual put-together style. "Perry, please," she said when she saw him, her voice breaking. "Can we just talk? 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Several of his colleagues were watching. This was the performance she wanted, the desperate wife begging her cold, unfeeling husband for a chance to explain. Perry could practically see her calculating the optics. "Bonnie, my attorney has advised me not to speak with you directly. Any communication needs to go through the lawyers." "I'm your wife." Her voice rose, tears streaming down her face now. "We've been together for 8 years and you won't even give me 5 minutes? You're my wife who spent 7 months planning to divorce me while sleeping with someone else. You're my wife who called me pathetically oblivious and weak. You're my wife who had a detailed strategy to manipulate me through legal proceedings." Perry kept his voice calm, clinical. "So no, I won't give you 5 minutes. I gave you 8 years. That was enough." "I made a mistake." Bonnie was sobbing now, full-body sobs that looked almost genuine. "I was confused. I was scared. I didn't know what I wanted. But I know now. I want you. I want our marriage. Please, Perry, please." Perry looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but a distant sort of pity. 3 weeks ago, seeing her cry would have destroyed him. Now it just seemed like another tactic, another angle to play. "Goodbye, Bonnie," he said quietly and turned to walk back to his office. "You're going to regret this," she screamed after him, the tears shutting off like a faucet. "When you're alone and miserable, you're going to remember this moment and wish you'd given me another chance." Perry kept walking. Behind him, he heard Tom calmly ask security to escort Bonnie from the building. The scene had been witnessed by half the office, and within an hour the full story had spread through their professional circle. But the version that spread wasn't Bonnie's version. It was the truth. Too many people had heard too much of the confrontation, and word traveled fast about the recording, the affair, the manipulation. Bonnie's carefully constructed narrative was falling apart, but she wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. 2 days later, Perry received a notice that Bonnie was claiming he'd been financially abusive during their marriage, that he'd controlled all the money, refused to let her work, and kept her dependent on him. It was a complete fabrication, easily disproven by bank records showing she had full access to all accounts, and made the decision to quit her job herself. But it was a signal. She was willing to lie, to make false accusations, to destroy his reputation if that's what it took to win. Patricia filed a counterclaim immediately, including the recording and documentation that Bonnie had quit by choice and had actually bragged about manipulating Perry into supporting her. "She's getting desperate," Patricia said during one of their strategy meetings. "That's good for us. Desperate people make mistakes. What's our next move? We're going to depose Derek, put him under oath and ask him about the affair, the timeline, whether he knew Bonnie was married. We're also going to subpoena his phone records and emails. I have a feeling there are some interesting communications there. Won't that drag this out longer? Yes, but it'll also expose every lie they've told. And Perry, I need you to prepare yourself for something." Patricia's expression was serious. "Bonnie is going to make one last play. I don't know what it'll be yet, but there's going to be a moment where she tries something dramatic, something designed to make you doubt yourself or feel guilty. You need to be ready for it." She was right. The play came exactly 1 week later. Perry was working late at his condo when his doorbell rang. He checked the security camera and saw Bonnie standing there, alone, looking small and vulnerable. He almost didn't answer, but something made him open the door, though he kept the chain lock engaged. "What do you want, Bonnie?" "I know you don't want to talk to me. I know I don't have the right to ask you for anything." Her voice was different this time. No drama, no tears, just exhaustion. "But I need you to know something, and then I'll go, and I won't bother you again. You have 2 minutes. She took a deep breath. "You were right about everything. Derek is exactly who Jennifer said he is. He's been pulling away ever since he found out you have resources he didn't know about. Ever since the divorce got complicated instead of easy. Last night he told me he thinks we should take a break until both our divorces are finalized, which means he's already looking for someone new." Perry said nothing, just watched her. "I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was greedy and stupid and bored. I threw away someone who actually loved me for someone who was just using me, and now I have nothing. No marriage, no boyfriend, no job, no money. I'm staying on Val's couch and she's already tired of me being there." Bonnie's composure cracked. "I'm not asking for another chance. I know I don't deserve that. I'm just asking, did I ever mean anything to you? Or is it really that easy for you to just turn off 8 years?" This was the moment Patricia had warned him about. The moment designed to make him doubt, to make him feel cruel, to make him think maybe he was being too harsh. Perry looked at his wife, his soon-to-be ex-wife, and chose his words carefully. "You meant everything to me, Bonnie. For 8 years you were my whole world. I would have done anything for you, anything. But the woman I love doesn't exist. She was a character you played, a role you performed because it got you what you wanted. The real you is the woman on that recording, laughing about manipulating me, calling my kindness weakness, planning to exploit me for money." He paused. "So no, I haven't turned off 8 years. I'm mourning 8 years, but I'm mourning something that was never real." Bonnie's face crumpled. "I did love you, maybe not the way I should have, maybe not enough, but I did love you. You loved what I gave you. That's not the same thing." Perry started to close the door. "Goodbye, Bonnie. I hope you figure out what actually makes you happy, but it's not my job to help you anymore." He closed the door softly and heard her sob on the other side. Part of him, the part that had loved her for so long, wanted to open it again, to comfort her, to make it better. But he didn't, because Patricia was right. This was Bonnie's last play, her final attempt to get him to fold. He texted Patricia. "She came by, tried the heartbroken act. I didn't bite." The response came back immediately. "Good. Her lawyer called today. They want to settle. She'll accept the standard division, half the condo equity, no spousal support if you agree not to pursue reimbursement for expenses during her affair. She's cutting her losses." Perry stared at his phone. "What about Derek?" "Already moved on. My investigator saw him at a restaurant last night with another woman. Looked cozy. I'll send you the photos if you want them, but honestly, I don't think you need them." She was right. He didn't need them. Derek was Bonnie's problem now, or rather, he wasn't anyone's problem anymore. He'd done what he always did, created chaos, and moved on. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later, just before Christmas. The settlement was exactly what Patricia had predicted. Bonnie got $157,000 from the condo sale, half their joint savings, about $12,000, and nothing else. No spousal support, no car, no furniture she hadn't explicitly purchased herself. The judge had read the recording transcript and had been visibly unimpressed with Bonnie's claims of financial abuse. On the day the divorce was finalized, Perry sat in the courthouse hallway while Patricia handled the paperwork. Bonnie was there with her lawyer, sitting at the opposite end of the hall. They didn't look at each other. When it was done, when Patricia emerged with the signed papers, Perry stood up and walked toward the exit. He had to pass Bonnie to get there. As he did, she spoke for the first time in weeks. "I hope you're happy, Perry. I hope it was worth it." He stopped, turned to look at her. "It was worth not spending the rest of my life with someone who saw me as a mark instead of a partner." "So yes, Bonnie, it was worth it." He walked out into the cold December air, his breath misting in front of him. His phone buzzed, text from his parents, from Jason, from Patricia, all congratulating him. He responded to each one briefly, thanking them for their support. Then he did something he hadn't done in 2 months. He went to his favorite coffee shop, ordered a ridiculously expensive latte, and sat by the window watching people rush past with their holiday shopping bags. He pulled out his phone and opened the calendar app. March 15th, his 35th birthday, the day he could access his grandfather's trust fund. He'd always planned to tell Bonnie on that day, to surprise her with the security and freedom that money would provide. Now he'd be telling no one, sharing it with no one. But somehow that felt right. He'd proven he could build a life without it. He'd proven his career could stand on its own merit. And now that money would be his to use however he wanted. Maybe a new home, maybe investments, maybe donations to causes he cared about. Choices made freely, without having to consider anyone else's wants or manipulations. His phone rang. "Patricia." "Just wanted to check in," she said. "How are you holding up?" "I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. I feel free." "Good. That's the goal." Patricia paused. "Perry, can I give you some advice? Not as your lawyer, but as someone who's been through this herself?" "Of course." "Take some time before you date again. Process everything that happened. Learn the lessons you need to learn. And when you're ready, find someone who loves you for who you are, not what you can provide. Those people exist, I promise." "Thank you, Patricia, for everything." After the call, Perry sat for a long time, his coffee growing cold. He thought about the man he'd been 8 years ago, young, optimistic, believing that love and trust were enough to build a life on. He thought about the man he was now, wiser, more cautious, but not broken. Wounded, yes. Grieving, yes, but not broken. Bonnie had tried to destroy him, tried to take everything she thought he had, but she'd never known about the trust fund. She'd never understood that his real value wasn't in his assets, but in his character, his integrity, his capacity to care for others. She'd called his kindness weakness. She'd been wrong. Real strength wasn't in being cruel or calculating. Real strength was in being kind even when you had the power to be cruel. It was in choosing integrity even when dishonesty would be easier. It was in protecting yourself without losing your humanity in the process. Perry had been tested in ways he'd never imagined possible. He discovered betrayal, documented it, protected himself legally and financially, and walked away from someone who treated him like a tool to be used and discarded. He'd done it all without violence, without destroying anyone's reputation beyond what they'd done to themselves, without losing sight of who he was at his core. That was real power. That was real strength. 3 months later, Perry was walking through Pike Place Market on a Saturday morning, buying fresh flowers for his new apartment. A smaller place, simpler, but entirely his. His phone buzzed with a text from Jason. "Dude, did you see this?" Below it was a link to a Society page article. Henderson and Associates partner Derek Morrison resigns amid professional ethics inquiry. The article was vague on details, citing conduct unbecoming a partner and violations of firm ethics policies. Reading between the lines, Perry understood. Derek's pattern of affairs with married women had finally caught up with him. His firm had enough, and rather than face a formal investigation, he'd been given the option to resign. Perry felt a moment of satisfaction, then let it go. Derek wasn't his concern anymore. Neither was Bonnie. He'd heard through mutual friends that she'd moved to California, was staying with a college friend, working retail while she figured out her next chapter. Part of him wondered if she'd learned anything from everything that happened. Probably not. But that wasn't his problem either. Perry bought lilies and roses and walked back to his car, enjoying the spring sunshine. His phone buzzed again, this time a reminder for a dinner he'd scheduled tonight. Since the divorce, he'd reconnected with old friends he'd lost touch with during his marriage. Tonight was dinner with his college roommate, Dave, and Dave's wife, Sarah. Just friends, just conversation, just the kind of normal human connection he'd been missing for years without realizing it. Life wasn't perfect. He still had moments where he felt the ache of betrayal, still had nights where he second-guessed every choice he'd made in his marriage. But those moments were getting fewer and further between, replaced by something steadier: acceptance. He loved Bonnie. That was real, even if her love for him wasn't. He'd built a life with her, invested in a future with her, trusted her completely. That wasn't stupidity or weakness. That was what love looked like. The fact that she couldn't reciprocate, couldn't be the partner he deserved, said everything about her and nothing about him. Perry got in his car and sat for a moment. Flowers on the passenger seat, sunlight streaming through the windshield. He thought about his grandfather, who'd set up that trust fund with the specific requirement that Perry couldn't access it until 35. At the time, it had seemed arbitrary. Now he understood the wisdom. His grandfather had wanted him to build something of his own first, to know his own worth independent of inherited wealth. That requirement had saved him. If Bonnie had known about the trust fund from the beginning, would she have married him? Maybe, but she would have loved the money, not him, and he never would have known the difference. "Thank you, Grandpa," Perry said quietly to the empty car. "You were right." He started the engine and pulled out into traffic, heading home to his new life. A life built on truth instead of lies. A life where kindness wasn't weakness, but strength. A life where he knew, absolutely and without question, that he could trust himself. Bonnie had tried to break him. Instead, she'd revealed who she truly was and given him the gift of clarity. And Perry Garland, 34 years old and newly divorced, was finally completely free. Perry learned something profound through his ordeal, that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well and refusing to let someone else's cruelty change who you are at your core. He'd faced betrayal with intelligence rather than violence, protected himself with strategy rather than spite, and walked away with his integrity intact. Bonnie had called his kindness weakness, his consideration pathetic, his love a liability. But in the end, those qualities were what saved him. His kindness meant he'd been patient enough to listen to that entire phone call, gathering evidence. His consideration meant he'd documented everything carefully, building an unassailable case. His love meant he'd put everything in both their names, which made it crystal clear in court that he'd never been controlling or financially abusive. Her cruelty had become her downfall. His kindness had become his armor. And if there's a lesson in Perry's story, it's this: never confuse kindness with weakness. Never assume someone's goodness means they can be exploited. And never underestimate the person you're betraying. They might be far stronger, far smarter, and far more capable than you ever imagined. Perry learned that justice doesn't always look like revenge. Sometimes it looks like walking away with your head high, your resources protected, and your character intact. Sometimes the best victory is simply refusing to become the villain in someone else's story. He'd been tested in the fire of betrayal and emerged not hardened, but refined. Still capable of trust, but wiser about where to place it. Still capable of love, but more discerning about who deserved it. Still kind, but no longer confused about the difference between kindness and enabling someone's cruelty. 3 months after his divorce was finalized, Perry stood in his new apartment, looking out at the Seattle skyline as evening fell. His phone buzzed with a text from his father. "Proud of you, son. Your grandfather would be too." Perry smiled, set his phone down, and returned to the architectural plans spread across his dining table. He had a meeting on Monday about a new civic center project, the biggest commission of his career so far, one that had come to him based solely on his reputation and skill. He'd built this life himself, without deception, without shortcuts, without compromising who he was. And when his 35th birthday came and the trust fund became accessible, he'd build even more. Not because he needed the money to prove anything, but because he'd already proven everything that mattered. Bonnie had wanted to take everything from him. Instead, she'd given him the greatest gift possible, the absolute certainty of who he was, what he was worth, and what he would never accept again. And that, Perry thought, as he bent over his plans, pencil in hand, was worth more than any settlement, any revenge, any amount of money in the world. He was free, he was whole, he was enough, and he always had been. If you enjoyed this story, like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.